into hotel rooms for a period of time to keep people safe and sound while we're dealing with a pandemic. So in the same way that we ask people who are housed to stay safer at home, we're trying to make sure that option, that opportunity is available to everyone. So we're leasing privately held motels and hotels and making them available to people who do not have any other means to shelter in place.
Hey everybody, Christine here, founder of Kindred, also the host of the Coliving Code Show, where we bring a different episode on every single week. And, sometimes I like to mix it up on you guys. This week we have another unique episode. Obviously, co-living is one thing, but I also believe the future of living can also consist of us helping solve the homeless problem, especially here in the States. Project Roomkey was started to help with the obvious COVID situation. So we wanted to bring on an expert. This week we brought on Sarah. She's the chair of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Commission and oversaw the creation of LA's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Sarah served as senior policy advisor to Mayor Eric Garcetti during his 2013 campaign and during his tenure as president of the city council. Throughout her career, Sarah has gained a reputation as a passionate advocate, policy expert, and an innovative problem solver, and board member of the Los Angeles LGBT Center, assisting in their work to open an intergenerational campus addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness. Sarah's passion for ending homelessness and advocating for mental health derives from her lived experience of a family member who is experiencing both. Her experiences trying to house her brother were printed in the LA Times. We have that link below in the show notes. So welcome this week, Sarah, with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, talking about Project Roomkey. This week, we are bringing on Sarah with Project Roomkey out of Los Angeles, which it's an incredible cause. We're going to go deep into what it's about. So welcome to the show this week, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And let's start there. Just talk about again, we have listeners and viewers from around the world. So I'd love for you to explain what Project Roomkey is.
Absolutely. So Project Roomkey is an initiative from our governor in the state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom. And this is in response to our COVID-19 pandemic. And we are trying to place our most vulnerable, underserved into hotel rooms for a period of time to keep people safe and sound while we're dealing with a pandemic. So in the same way that we ask people who are housed to stay safer at home, we're trying to make sure that option, that opportunity is available to everyone. So we're leasing privately held motels and hotels and making them available to people who do not have any other means to shelter in place.
And that was my next question is, what percentage of income? So obviously the state is paying the motel and hotel owners to house these people, which is great. What percentage of revenue are they getting their full amount that they would normally get if there is, tourists, or is it a percentage?
So it's definitely a percentage. It's not what they're getting, what I would say in the high season, but the win-win that's available through this program is that we're essentially filling up their hotel. So outside of high season, when is their hotel full? So we're leasing every room. So yes, the individual per room rate is reasonable for taxpayers because taxpayers ultimately are paying for it. But at the same time, the business owner is able to secure essentially all of their rooms. So that is a win-win, and they're able to employ, their employees. A lot of those are local jobs. We're also paying taxes, which are being paid to local cities. So there's a lot of revenue business benefits that are coming through this program.
That is amazing. And then I know, you guys secured 15,000 rooms, but right now you guys have about 3,000 that have already moved in?
So, excuse me. So our goal is to secure 15,000 rooms. We're not there yet. And why I'm interested in continuing to do things like this and podcasts and other ways to get the word out this is a mutually agreed upon contract. So we need a hotel willing to engage in this program. And we then negotiate a lease. We're still interested in attracting more hotels to the program. We have a little over 3,000 rooms online. We hit our 3,000 mark of people inside rooms. So it's about 3,200 rooms we have online and 3,000 people inside them. And we're looking to secure more. Our ultimate goal is 15,000. If we hope to get close, whatever we're able to achieve will be a huge win. This program has never been tried before in response to a pandemic or in response to any other natural disaster. So typically, as we've seen with hurricanes or other big events in the United States, the government would lease like a large venue. You saw with various hurricanes, they would lease like a large sporting events venue or things like that. And then they would put people in that venue. Well, in the case of a pandemic, that's the worst idea because you're putting a lot of people in one place. And so we're trying to come up with spaces and opportunities that allow people to stay safe and create that physical distance, but also create emergency or temporary shelter opportunities. So this, again, has never been done before. Private property is being put to a different use. So what's exciting is it's being put for a public good. And, we're in an age where we got to be thinking creatively about how we use any assets all the time. And I think this is something where, this could be a benefit long-term of this crisis response, is that we've exercised these muscles around thinking creatively around different types of uses, creatively around what could be a public good, and really infusing that civic spirit in the public and private sector.
And that's what's so great. We don't just bring on people specific to co-living, but people that are helping with the future of housing and the future of living, and we put in the show notes, we have somebody, and she's actually doing it privately, it's already housed, 80 homeless off the streets of Los Angeles. She's super passionate about it. We aired that back on Christmas Day, which was really cool. Heidi with Haven, which is a smaller program. Oh, have you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to kind of bring in these solutions, because I know there's always different numbers being thrown out. In LA County, is it 60,000 homeless or 70,000?
So nearly 60,000 per the last certified count. So we have a new count coming out in the next month, but for the last certified count, nearly 60,000. But the number that isn't reported is we have literally 750,000 people who are overly rent burdened, who are really on that cusp of potentially becoming homeless. And so that's why we deal in Los Angeles with such large numbers of unsheltered people, individuals and families experiencing homelessness, because of our stark economic divide. Our overwhelming majority of people experiencing homelessness are due to economic reasons. And that brings us back to, okay, then there are economic solutions, and we have to start thinking creatively about shared housing, creatively around multi-use housing, creatively about where we're putting housing. Could we really look at alternatives? We're looking at, these pallet homes. We're looking at modular. We're looking at all sorts of concepts that could help us house people more quickly, in addition to Project Roomkey. But again, our focus around Project Roomkey is the fact that, the tourism market is in a serious decline. We're not sure when it will be able to come back. And so this asset, this resource is available, and we're trying to reach out and make sure that we connect as many hotels and motels as possible. And then we are, included in the governor's budget is this idea around potentially long-term leasing for hotels, or potentially acquisitions of hotels who are just not necessarily going to make it through this economic decline.
And that's a great point too. So obviously we were super excited to have Project Roomkey on the show this week, so thanks again. We appreciate it. I know you guys are very busy with the cause, But I did, when I was asking friends and colleagues, hey, I'm having them on, what should I ask? And their number one question was, what's going to happen to the people once the hotels go back into business?
Absolutely. Great question. So I'm chair of what's called the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and working with our interim executive director is Heidi Marston. What we're so excited about is that while people are in Project Roomkey, then we have access to to case management, to housing navigators, to people who are then connecting them to resources. We all know how it is. It's so hard to deal with the DMV or deal with the general bureaucracy that may be keeping you from making that over that last hurdle to get into a permanent housing opportunity. And being in Project Roomkey, being safer at home in that environment, you then have access to those resources to make that leap. So our goal is not that we house 15,000 people and they are then stagnant and then there's no opportunity at the end of it. The goal actually is, how are we bringing people through this opportunity? So we're trying to make people better off than they were prior to the pandemic. I realize that's very challenging in this economic environment, but I will say that having access to folks and being able to cut through red tape because they're in this program is actually been incredibly useful and really empowering. And so our hope is that absolutely everyone who we engage actually winds up in a either permanent or interim housing opportunity. So we're doing things like looking at master leasing, looking at acquisition of some of these hotels. We're looking at creation of modular units in the time while someone's being housed. We're looking to create units that they can then move into. We're also accessing permanent supportive housing units that we already have available, but now we've got access. I'm sure you've heard from other folks on the show, there's just red tape in getting people housed. And so we're able to really address that during this period.
But during the pandemic, do you find that you kind of cut through the red tape a little quicker?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about emergency powers that's very useful. And it really makes it clear who's in charge, under what authority, and people can be more responsive. And so that's what we're trying to implement into our long range planning. How can we capitalize on these lessons learned and apply them to our everyday to help create we consider this the emergency response system. How can we create this as a permanent rehousing system that creates a more equitable safety net for all of Los Angeles?
And Sarah, I know we didn't touch on it quite yet, and we have it in our show notes, this is close to home for you. So I don't know if you want to touch a little bit on your brother and just why you're so passionate about homelessness.
Yeah. Well, my brother suffers from severe mental illness, and, because of that has spent 20 years off and on experiencing homelessness. At the beginning, I'm pretty honest about it. At the beginning of the pandemic, he was in jail for yet another sort of minor issue. And I was very worried about him because of the outbreaks in jail. And he's been placed into a housing opportunity, which is exciting for us. But he continues to struggle. And this is why I do this work, because I know how hard it is to get people into housing and keep their housing. And I want to make sure that opportunity is available to everyone.
And again, we that was a great article in the LA Times. We've linked it. And you've been working, on this since 2016, correct? With Garcetti is when you kind of joined up with Garcetti?
Oh no, I've been doing this since 2000. So I'm 20 years in this work. Yeah, I started with Mayor Jim Hahn, and was a deputy mayor for Housing and Homelessness for a brief period, and then I've been advising a variety of elected officials over the last 20 years. I've really I loved working with Mayor Eric Garcetti when I had the opportunity, but now I'm appointed by Supervisor Solis to the position I'm currently in as chair of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority.
Got it. And then we didn't touch, so what percentage do you think on the streets, and I don't know if you know the stat, as economic, which you mentioned, or mental illness? Do you know those stats?
So I do. So it really depends how you calculate it, and which is why we're working hard with the UCLA Policy Lab, Janie Roundtree, to get more information about people who are unsheltered. What we report to HUD based on their definition is about a third. So about a 29% of people who are unsheltered are also experiencing severe mental illness. I think that we need more information about people who are unsheltered and about their vulnerabilities. I'm not sure we have that complete picture, and because we don't have the complete picture, I'm not sure we meet people's needs as well as we need to. And so we're looking at doing a lot more research around 65 and older, around those who are unsheltered, folks struggling with severe mental illness, folks who are struggling with a variety of health issues. This Project Roomkey has really given us this opportunity to bring so many people indoors so much faster than we've ever been able to do before. And that also gives us an opportunity to really talk with people and get better access to data. And that's something we're trying to take advantage of.
And oh my gosh, so it means 71% it's an economic reason. And that is wow. Because everybody assumes, they just say, oh, it's a mental illness. They don't want to be housed. That's why they're on the street. I mean, I would not have guessed it was only, 30% roughly. That's super interesting.
Yeah, the other interesting fact that a lot of people are not aware is, that vast majority of people experiencing homelessness are experiencing homelessness in the neighborhood. They have deep ties. They either grew up there, they used to work there, they're usually in the community where they have a lot of ties. A lot of times people assume, oh, the folks experiencing homelessness in my neighborhood were pushed here from somewhere else. It's not that that doesn't happen, but more often than not, people experiencing homelessness are experiencing it in the neighborhood where they came from, where they have ties to that community. And so it's so important for every community to realize the need for deeply affordable housing, the need for creative solutions. And that's why, we're so excited about Project Roomkey and the geographic diversity that we've achieved, although we want more, where there's locations throughout Los Angeles County.
Yeah, and I lived in Europe last year, and it was brought up multiple times, from the Europeans, was like, oh my gosh, why does the US, as wealthy as that country is, why do you guys have such a problem with the homeless? Why can't you house them? So it was just embarrassing to even, state the numbers here.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
know,
most countries in Europe and most other countries have a right to shelter, have a right to housing embedded in their safety net. So when I talk about how we're trying to create that sustainable, results-driven safety net, that's what I'm talking about. That those other countries have built it into their safety net that they're going to provide some form of housing if you fall through the cracks. And here we have pretty limited housing opportunities, but we're changing that for sure.
no, that's awesome. And then that, again, so 2016 was when the $1.2 billion was kind of assigned to Los Angeles to work on this project, correct?
So 2016 was when we launched what's called HHH, which was the 1.2 billion to build more affordable housing or permanent supportive housing. And then that's also the same period in which the county passed a Measure H sales tax that provides for the services attached to that housing. So the case management, the housing navigation, the additional access to mental health. A lot of those things are funded, actually health are funded through Measure H. But that's a sales tax measure. So right now, sales taxes are going down. And so we have a real financial issue as we're trying to expand services for our most vulnerable.
And then do you think it's just still that red tape and just a slow process to kind of move through, getting this launched?
No, I honestly, the issues around those two initiatives, sort of housing all 60,000 people, are the fact that those two initiatives, while extremely bold and significant, couldn't replace the decades of neglect. I mean, when we see what has happened in other countries where you have a right to housing, they have a federal government that is supplying rental assistance at levels that we do not do in the United States. And so we haven't figured out how to support housing insecurity in the way that we need to. So we, in the county of Los Angeles or city of Los Angeles, 1 in 8 people who are eligible for federal rent aid get it. 1 in 8. Nationally, 1 in 4 get it. So if all 8 people who were eligible for federal aid had access to federal aid, that 60,000 number would probably be a third of what it is, or maybe even less. Maybe it'd be like 10,000 at most. What we don't have is federal rent subsidies in the way that other countries provide. And we have to really look at what are we going to do to change that.
And why do you think they're just unaware of the program?
No, I think there is a wait list of 40,000 people, and the wait list lasts like 15 years. I think that the issue is that we have done some very bold local initiatives, but in terms of the overall funding profile of what's needed to rehouse every person who falls into homelessness, we have not funded it at scale. We fund it we collectively. Locally, both the county and the city of Los Angeles have really stepped up in their funding initiatives. And the state more recently has as well. Governor Newsom has absolutely put funding toward this, but it's going to take a lot more effort on all of our parts to create the scale needed, given the housing insecurity. If 750,000 people are paying more than 50% of their income toward rent, we have to deal with that housing insecurity, and that we have not been able to do that at the scale that we need to. But the thing that this pandemic has really laid bare is that issue, because as soon as the orders came down to stay safer at home, even before, you realize, well, what about those who can't stay safer at home? And long term, how is our collective health going to be secure if we can't secure the health of those experiencing homelessness? Our health depends on everyone's health. That's what this pandemic has shown us, that we are all in this together. And so we can't allow for a whole group of people to not have access to this very basic need of housing.
Very well put. You're exactly right. Are you, and out of curiosity, are you a native to California?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in those numbers, out of curiosity, which I think I already know the answer, unfortunately, we don't even talk about people living in their cars. So that's like a separate number, correct?
It's not on top of, it's a part of the 60,000. But so of the 60,000, 44,000 are unsheltered. And of the 44,000, about a third of those are sheltering in some sort of vehicle.
Okay. And then is this all of LA County, or this is just LA as a city?
That's all of LA County. LA City, the numbers are 36,000 with about 27,000 unsheltered.
Got it. Okay. So that makes me feel a little bit better. I thought that was a separate number from people. And again, it's nice to go to the source because you guys know the stats and you're there and you're in it every day. But some people kind of just throw out numbers and, I was like, let's find out exactly.
Well, and for any more data, if anyone's interested, they could go to our website, which is LAHSA, LAHSA.org, O-R-G.
Nice. Okay, good. And then now everything, and you said it's going to be updated again in about a month? The
A little bit less than a month. Yeah.
Terrific. And then, yeah, I mean, and I shared this on the interview with Heidi, I was up and I go to LA a lot from San Diego a lot. And so, I got really bad traffic. I didn't leave early enough. And the GPS routed me in this really odd way off the 5. And it was literally through the heart of Skid Row, 7 a.m. It broke my heart. I've driven through once at night, maybe like 15, 20 years ago. And it was just devastating to see that like at 7 a.m. in the morning. And again, and that's what prompted me. I'm like, I need to get Heidi on the show. I need to at least give some more visibility to what's going on and how do we fix it. So again, like really great. Project Roomkey I was just super excited. Did you guys launch that in March or April?
In March.
Okay. So you guys jumped on it. You guys moved fast. It was very impressive.
Yeah.
I kept hearing about it. So I didn't know if there's any, last thoughts or, how can people support the program, get involved?
Well, I mean, on our website, there's all sorts of volunteer opportunities. One of my favorite things to do is I make welcome bags that are distributed to people as they're coming indoors. Because again, we're trying to help people stay safer indoors. So we give them puzzles or a deck of cards or things in it that are just make it more fun. And it also just shows hospitality. So the more I would just stress to listeners, the more hospitality we can show people, the more understanding, the more compassion, and to certainly be an advocate for affordable housing in your individual community, be an advocate for the right to housing. That really helps in our work. The more people who are speaking up that this is something that they want, something they want funded, so that we can make the case to both our state and federal government that we have to continue to support these efforts.
And how do you guys choose? Here's the last question I just thought of. How do you guys choose? Again, there's 60,000 people. Like, what's the process?
Right. Well, the focus of this has been on our most vulnerable. So people over 65 or an underlying medical condition that makes them vulnerable to COVID-19. So we are looking for folks who fit that criteria. But we are also welcoming people into congregate shelter environments. We've extended used to be called winter shelter through the summer. So we have beds available through that program. And then we also have beds that the city of Los Angeles, through the mayor, has stood up in their rec centers. So we're trying to bring as many people as possible indoors, whether you meet the criteria for the hotel room or not. But that's the basic outline of it.
Perfect. Well, again, all those websites you mentioned, we're going to have them in the show notes so people can reach out. And thank you again, Sarah, so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out kindred.io, KNDRD.io. Thanks.